Mr. Steinman, given the 50 years that you referred to before we went on a short break, do you foresee that Namibia will ever be able to put up its own refinery?
Yes, 50 years from now.
Okay. That's a positive response.
It's very interesting. The ultimate development of the oil fields depend on the quality and the extent of the resource. Nothing else. If there is enough oil in the seabed where they have discovered the tentative or preliminary indications of good oil, then it will be developed, regardless of what government policy is. Whether it is investor friendly or not investor friendly, it will be developed. But it will not be determined by government policy, it will not be determined by finances, it will be determined by only one thing. How much oil is there? What type of oil is there? And if you don't believe me, just look at the diamond trade. Through all the conflict in Africa, the diamond trade has never stopped.
Yep.
And blood diamonds...
Another topic for another day.
That's so true. They may follow a different route and label differently. But where there is... In economics, we have a concept, we call it arbitrage. If the price of fuel in Angola is, let's say, I think it's 7 Namibia dollars, 7 rand 50 cents a liter. And the price of fuel is around 18, 19, 20 Namibia dollars in Namibia. And there's an artificial line on a map that says north of this line is Angola and south of this line is Namibia. But there's this huge price differential between the same commodity, north of the border and south of the border. What's going to happen? People are going to take the cheap commodity to the more expensive market and they will sell it. We call it arbitrage. The policemen call it smuggling, but it's exactly the same thing. It is movement of goods that is created or boosted by a price differential that cannot be accounted for through normal production limitations or financial limitations. You know, it's an easy buck to make. If you can get that 25-liter can of petrol across the border somehow, if it's on the back of an ox or the back of a bakkie, it doesn't matter. All you need to do is you need to move it about 5 kilometers from just outside the border to just inside the border. Because this side you have, and let's say you sell it at 14. You bought it at $7, you sell it at 14. So you double your investment, but it is still 1/3 cheaper than what you have to pay in Namibia for petrol at the pump. Do you see how it works? Now, the same thing will work with the refinery. Refineries are bound to market size. So it means that you cannot go and put up a refinery for 1 million people. If you have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 million people, you can put up a refinery, but preferably you're looking at 30, 40, 50 million people. So what it means is that the Angolan market is big enough to refine crude oil for that market. The South African market is big enough to refine crude oil. If you combine the Zambian, Zimbabwean, Botswana market, that's also big enough. Now look at the practicalities. Angola produces more oil than it can consume, ever. That's why it is a huge export country. So that's why it's an OPEC member and everything. South Africa does not produce a lot of crude oil, does not extract crude oil, not yet, but they produce a lot of fuel from either from coal or from gas. And they've got, I think, 4 huge refineries, and Mozambique has got a refinery at Beira. And if you go further north, there are refineries on the east coast of Africa. So the point is, there's no shortage in capacity to refine oil. The thing that we're looking for, that we have too little of, is not diesel and petrol and all the derivatives. It's crude oil.
Yeah.
The thing that we're constantly looking for is new sources of crude oil.
Yeah.
And that is the determining factor. Crude oil is not dependent on the size of the market. And we are a good example. Let's go for a best case scenario. We buy in on the store, or to the stories that the oil companies spent us 3 years ago. 8 million barrels a day,
Yes.
I read 12 billion barrels in the first preliminary estimates. That was when they've drilled only 3 or 4 holes.
Yeah.
And remember, I explained to you that they drill a hole, let's say every 20, 30, 40 kilometers, and then a computer fills in the missing parts. They analyze what comes out of the hole, and they feed that information into a computer program. And that computer program tells us what it thinks, what it postulates to be in the area between the holes. Now, that's a far cry from knowing exactly what is down there.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why it's going to take a long time before we get at full extraction, full production. And a refinery, first of all, we don't have the money. Nobody in this country has the money. Secondly, the big oil companies, they will determine where they want to refine. And the fact that we will eventually, or that we will continue to extract oil, will be determined by the volume, by the size, by nothing else. So the answer on the refinery is 50 years if we're lucky.
But at least we will be having a refinery. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
There's no guarantee.
There's no guarantee there. But leaving it at that, hopefully we'll continue this talk again next week. Unfortunately, we have to say goodbye. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for making the time, Mr. Daniel Steinman, to always be here, to be able to have this talk with us and also educating us. So from us to you, we say goodbye.